lot of abductions do take place outside of the body. And I think, we're becoming much more aware now that, this type of phenomena, it's not just isolated to one thing, and it's not just UAPs, and it's not just alien abduction, and it's not like Bigfoot and the Dogman and the, cryptozoology and paranormal. It's all related. It's all joined together. It all fits, but, and even with the demonic energies, with demon type energies. But some people just say, I'm sure you've heard this yourself, that, the demons are the greys. They're not. The greys and the demons are two different types of beings. I think the entire human history is a deception. Our history is much more than what we've been led to believe, and almost certainly these type of beings have interfered in our spiritual evolution on this planet, and they continue to do so to this day. Just try to, push it back, to stop us from being self-realized in who we are and where we come from and our great potential, and moving forward as a species, as an individual and a collective consciousness. A lot of the thing with the greys is, a lot of the time as well, they have a hive mind, so they have a collective consciousness. But human beings are quite unique in that we have an individual consciousness. We have a choice. I've been given information recently whilst outside of the body about the Earth and its creation, and I was told that this planet was created specifically by artificial intelligence, and this is the reason why it is considered to be a virtual reality playground. This planet is not the original Earth for humans. I have interactions with certain beings, that are human and more advanced, shall we say, spiritually. They inhabit the, what would be the fifth realm or casual plane. So very much like ascended masters or immortals, human immortals, if you were, or the archangels. So as it's being explained to me, this planet is not the original planet where humans were created on. Something happened, but apparently what I was told is that human beings, when they were seeded here, they were very, very powerful, very spiritually aware, and very close to the Creator. Whoever, whatever your take is on that, but and they had specific abilities, and these abilities were removed, and their conscious awareness of these abilities and who they were and where they come from was removed as well. But as time went on and human beings evolved in certain ways, that seed of knowledge or wisdom and or who, where we come from and our origins is still hidden. Perhaps this is, again, to do with the source code. It is something that they've been trying to find for a long time, but the source code is hidden inside each abductee. It's a source of information that is basically very much linked to the Creator and creation itself. It's information that they actually want. They've been trying to obtain it for centuries, but they've not been able to, at the moment, find it. But every abductee, whether they know this or not, has a source code. And it's almost like a genetic breakdown of how things were created. The Greys will tell you they created human beings. It's nonsense. They never did. But and it's also, the source code's very important to certain alphabet agencies for the information that it contains. But as I said, as I was told, outside of the body, we don't hide a very important secret in a place that is easily able to be found. It's hidden inside, not the body, but it's hidden inside, the soul, I've had contact with, with the greys, with the shadow beings, with demonic energies. So, each one of them are.
I believe that there is a connection in some form or fashion with the alien phenomena.
I have no idea what that was.
But it's and also the thing is that, when people, it's also how you feel about them, your energy, if you feel fear and you feel the energy is not good, obviously that's not going to be good for your, it's not going to be good for you, is it? It all depends again in determining what their intentions are towards you. If they're like the greys, the greys come in, for as an example, in the middle of the night and they're taking you, they're taking a child.
Become a member on Patreon to get full access to all exclusive content. A few of the perks is the full-length ad-free video version of the interviews, face-to-face interviews, bonus shows, and behind-the-scenes footage. You will also receive the video interview way in advance before the audio-only interview gets dropped on all platforms. Sign up and become a member today for only $3 a month. The link is in the description.
Well, I was born in London. I'm from the United Kingdom, born in London. I was raised in a strict Roman Catholic Irish family, in a strict Roman Catholic environment, brought up by priests and nuns of the Roman Catholic Church. But my first encounters, I guess, with the paranormal was when I grew up in the school grounds, and my childhood home was, it was owned by the Roman Catholic Church. My dad was a caretaker for the school. And in my book, the book focuses primarily on this actual house and the environment itself. So the school grounds and the school itself, where a lot of the paranormal and abduction related experiences happened to me. So I was brought up in the 1970s, so in the house that I was in, I was actually an unexpected child. I was born premature, and I was in hospital for quite a long time. I was brought up in the area of the infamous Jack the Ripper. This, what would have been the serial killer. But in this house, when I come out of the hospital, basically, and was brought back to this house, a lot of strange occurrences began. So there was lots of cold spots in various parts of the house where there was previously none. Objects would move around, and vanish and then reappear. My mum, when she was in the house alone, she would often hear disembodied voices calling her name. And when she turned around, there was nobody there. On the walls in the house, they were very strong. These are like Victorian type houses, and if you were to hit the wall, you would only get the sound of a thud. But in the nighttime, when my dad and mum used to go to bed and the lights went out, there was a really strange banging sound that was basically like an echo. It would be like, as I say, like a stereo surround system now, that type of echoing. And when they went to investigate, there was nobody there, and this used to go on for like literally weeks of this banging sound. And I got three brothers that I mentioned in my book: Francis, Kevin, and Sean. Sean's 2 years older than me, and Francis and Kevin, they're a lot older than me and Sean. And they had experiences where, when Francis was in bed once, a really heavy oak wardrobe was pushed on top of him. He wasn't hurt, but he was, in shock. And another time, Kevin was coming up the stairs. He was pushed down the stairs by an unseen, hand. He felt something move past him that seemed to be quite tall. And again, he felt, he was pushed right down the stairs. And again, he wasn't hurt, but he was, quite a little bit shook up over it, as you would be. Um, and when my parents told me later on, that when I was in my cot, they saw, they observed, balls of light, or what would be, I guess now, orbs moving around my cot, moving through the walls. And my brother as well, and my parents, they often observed an entity of some sort looking down at me in my cot. They said it was glowing, and when it was observed, it vanished. So because it was a close-knit community, my dad, I guess my parents never done anything about it straight away. They didn't want people in the community to know, because it was a really, Roman Catholic environment. But because it was going on, and the activities began to get more menacing, they reached out to the church, and a priest came and blessed the house, and the activity, seemed to stop. So, this was, I guess, and also when I was researching the book, I didn't know at the time, but when I was researching my book for location, there is a lot of history in that area, and on the actual location of the house that I grew up in, it was at one time a Roman burial ground for lepers. So in the area that I grew up in, it was a lot of it was on the Roman sites, Roman ground.
You say
on one end,
burial ground for lepers, like people that died of leprosy.
Yeah, in Roman
Okay.
times.
Okay.
It was actually a cemetery underneath the house. And so so there was a lot of but the whole area that I grew up in. So on one part of, if you went to the right of my house and you walked for 10 minutes, you'd hit central London. So then if you went the other way for about 10 to 15 minutes walk, you hit the Tower of London, where the crown jewels are kept. So there's a lot of history in that area. And also during World War II, it was the area where the Blitz took place, where the Germans blew up pretty much most of London, and that area as well was basically, demolished. So when you in the book, it talks more about that, about the history. So if you strip back the layers, there's more and more layers where this type of phenomena could have occurred because of what happened. Because it was, a lot of violence, a lot of terrible things happened there.
I bet. And how far are you from, what do you call it? Westminster Abbey or whatever it is? Or
from there,
back then?
I was quite a few miles away from there.
Why ask? Because that's where the palace is and all that, right? Because I like going down all different types of rabbit holes. I don't care how crazy it gets, but one thing I contemplated, because whenever you're taking notes for interviews and shows, you think about your mind, you brainstorm, you try to come up with some good questions, great questions, what the hell questions was that, just everything. But so I don't think I've ever asked it, but I did think about it one time. About the royals over there, and they're projecting like a type of signal, something deep beneath the palace. They're projecting, they have something to project a signal to keep people's frequencies down, So, and I don't know, I've heard stuff that kind of made me brainstorm that, but I know that's getting off topic. But and that's why there's a lot of craziness that's happened around that area and just England in general. But
I did have a friend who was in the Scottish Highlanders. He was in the British Army, and he actually worked for Prince Charles, who's now the King of England.
Really?
So he was brought up in a prominent Scottish Highland family, with their own crest, and he served in the British Army in the Scottish Highlanders, and he went eventually on to working at the palace, at Buckingham Palace, and he served with Prince Charles at the time, and also Lady Diana Spencer. And he knew a lot of things that happened at the palace, you know. But
he didn't
because
see
he was,
he didn't see no shape shifting or nothing like that.
yeah, he did see some things, you know, but obviously he was, you know, he'd sworn the Official Secrets Act. So,
Yeah, that's right.
you
Yep,
know,
yep.
and then you were, you know, at the time you had special branch that looks after the royals. So, you know, but I know that he knew a lot of stuff.
Oh, I would love to be a fly on the wall wherever he is having a conversation to, you know. But
And I remember one day though, I'll tell you this. I remember one day he took the royal car out with the flags on it, you know, the official car. He took it for a drive and he crashed it into the back of a bus.
oh shit.
And no one knew. The only people that knew were the Royal Military Police, the Red Caps in the British Army, and the civilian police, the Metropolitan Police. They all knew because they all knew him. They all knew that he took the car out, but the Queen, she never knew nothing about it. And he actually was in central London and he crashed because he wasn't a good driver, you see. He took it out for us. He had some friends, you see, and he took them out to impress them, but he wasn't supposed to. You know, you would get in trouble really, but he took it for a spin and he was like trying to impress them, and he went into the back of this bus, and because all the windows are blacked out, but he had the royal flags on it, so people on the street they thought the Queen was in the back, but she wasn't. So he had to take it then to one of the royal garages where he had to have it repaired and put back before anyone knew. But all the police there, the British, you know, the Royal Military Police, they all knew that he'd done this, but they covered for him.
Man,
Otherwise,
that's crazy.
He would have went to the Tower of London.
Yes, I know, right? But man, so after watching some of your interviews, Michael, and
Sure.
and after hundreds of interviews I've conducted throughout the years since 2010, one thing I have learned to spot with certain people that I have on the show is
Sure.
noticing and not identifying with trauma. And it also helps to have a wife that's a psych nurse. I mentioned this many a times on the show. She's a psych nurse and she trains, and you know, she trains to spot certain characteristics of individuals. And
Sure.
always try to pick her brain, you know, just, you know, either about myself, like, you know, well, just whatever it is, but anything and everything. I have a fascination with the mind, you know, and just picking out things. So, but one thing I've noticed, Michael, after listening to some of your interviews, like I listened to a bunch of them today, but one thing I noticed, I watched a few yesterday or one yesterday, but one thing I noticed is that you have been through a lot of shit. You've been through a lot of trauma. And I feel like that definitely adds to your credibility.
Thank you. Yeah, I have complex PTSD, so I was diagnosed with that last year. Which is, you know, multiple abuse over a period of time that's not being, you know, it's below the surface basically through fractured memories. But in the book it talks about other subjects as well, which some people feel are unrelated to the topic, but you know, in book 2 I'll explain the reason why I put them in.
And people that are listening and or watching, we're about to start getting into some really bizarre whatever you call it, experiences, stories, whatever, from Michael. Some things that just you would just say, what the hell? Which I've had some crazy, and I might share one late within this interview, you know, but depends on when it fits into the, you know, with the discussion. But so first off, I guess I know this next question may be sensitive, Michael. But do you think that with all the trauma and experiences that you have had, that, you know, with being with abductions, with outer body, you know, abductions also, like poltergeists, just supernatural entities, everything, Do you think that your parents were part of some clandestine secret group? Possibly. Like, I don't mean that they meant anything nefarious or malevolent, you know. The reason why I asked that because well, if they were a part of some group or whatever, you know, out there to conduct some certain types of experiments on you, rather physical or psychological experiments. You have mentioned in the book, also in your interviews, that your parents were very secret in nature, and that you always felt like they were keeping something hidden from you. So it just strikes my curiosity. You know, were they just like with Eisenhower, the treaty with aliens and like that over here in the States? You know,
Yeah.
do you think? I know that's speculation because I doubt you have proof. Do you think that it's possible that you were part of this election process? You know, and they maybe some people came to them. You know, and maybe that's how you kind of got brought into the scenes with all this craziness that we'll be talking about.
Well, you know what? Often, you know, as you know, I'm sure, but often with, especially with alien abduction, often there is somebody in their family that is in the military. You know, normally in the US, it's normally the US Navy, the Department of Defense, Navy Intelligence, you know, or certainly somebody who's worked in the, you know, like something like the skunk works. They've worked with this type of technology. But for me, you know, as I explained to me, you know, my dad was served during World War II as a flight engineer. He was a Grand Knights Templar.
That's what made me kind of think of that, Michael, is because,
so
you know, whenever
was,
I heard you mention that before.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, most of the people in my household that I would have interactions with would be, I guess, three types of people. They would be Roman Catholics, cardinals, high-ranking members of the Roman Catholic Church of Rome. My dad had, you know, even though he was like a schoolkeeper, there was a lot more to him than that. You know, that it was more. There was more going on in the background. So he was high-ranking police officers, detectives. You know, what would be ACPO, which was people like Association of Chief Police Officers. They were the top, and they were all Freemasons. And military personnel. So there was a lot of military people around me as a child growing up. So that's why I'm quite familiar with the police. I'm quite you know, okay with the police and with the military. You know, it's familiar to me. In actual fact, most of the people I've ever got on well with were in the police and in the military. I just, you know, and throughout my life, I've always come into contact people that are in the police or in the military, you know, no matter what I've done. And I've also had, you know, some unusual job proposals in the past. You know, I worked for a military contractor. The same military contractor that I later learned was actually the that supplied the Area 51 base with the cameo dids. The military contractors, you know, that guard the perimeter of the Area 51. So I worked for a contractor that actually that supplied those military personnel to that base. I didn't know at the time, but I was an undercover surveillance operative that worked alongside the police doing undercover work, targeting violent criminals in London. And, you know, I'd done this for a little while, but then, you know, I left. But you know, my mum as well, during World War II, she built Lancaster bombers. So she worked in munitions factories and she built bombs and, you know, ammunition but because she was very intelligent, I mean, it's not a big deal nowadays, but during the war, because she was very intelligent, she was taken off the shop floor and made a supervisor. You know, in the time, it was just men in the offices doing that work, but she was brought upstairs and you know, promoted really because she, you know, her skills they said were, you know, more warranted doing what they were doing, I guess. But I know that my mum was an abductee as well because she had experiences with, you know, what I believe now could be, you know, the what we know now as the Greys. Back then, it's she wouldn't have known what they were, I don't think. And my dad did have paranormal experiences, but he was more of a nuts and bolts type of guy, I guess, as far as I know, anyway. But I did have, many of my uncles, they served in the military. One of my uncles, he served in Africa during the war in a role of the special forces. And I had uncles who were in the Navy. So so there was military in the family from that side of it.
So I've heard one thing with your mother. You say she worked with munitions and things like that during the war. What year was she born?
I don't know the year. I don't know. As I explain in my book, I know very little about my parents. I don't even have any photos of them. And there is a little bit of a something to do with that as well, because when I was born, apparently my two older brothers, were told never to speak about my birth.
One thing that I think of, and I've also talked about recently with another guest, is and I've talked about it before in the past, or looked into it. Because first off, how much older are your two older brothers than you?
By about 20 years.
So that's pretty big gap. What I'm saying is, and I know a lot of these things can be sensitive, but you wrote the book to try to, it's a form of, and also doing these interviews is a form of healing, also. But do you think that maybe you might be, because everybody listening, we will be getting into more of his stories with his book, High Strangeness, a Lifetime of Alien and Paranormal Encounters. But I have to ask you, do you think that maybe you are a hybrid? Maybe because there's a big gap between, I wouldn't, with your mother, I would say if she had you, she had it been older. I'm not saying she can't have a child at all, but you doing this research, and for years, you hear of babies getting dropped off at doorsteps. You hear of orphanages, and I just interviewed a lady, and I mentioned, she brought up orphan trains or something like that, Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever. Sure. And then I brought up something I've been thinking about, the integration process, like Dr. David Jacobs talks about. What better way to integrate society, with alien genetics than to, because back then orphanages were huge. Babies were being dropped off at doorsteps all the time, up into the, not that long ago. And I'm sure it still happens. You just don't hear about it. And orphan trains and these Cabbage Patch Kids stories, which is real strange. What were they doing? Were these byproducts of women that got abducted and they stole the embryos onto the ships and they genetically grew these Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever? I don't know. And they dropped them off at society in orphanages, the doorsteps of people. And do you think, I know it's crazy, but do you think you might be one? You know what I mean?
I don't think anything's crazy in our fields.
I know, right? I know.
I think that's quite normal for us.
Why I ask is because you're still trying to get your head around this. You still have a lot of your books fascinating. Your interviews are also, but there's a lot of unanswered questions too, especially with your family.
Yeah, yeah.
So it made me think.
It's interesting you should say that, because there is something along those lines that I've never spoken about, which is, I don't think my parents are my parents.
I noticed that I don't, and I listened past couple of days. I probably don't listen, like I said, altogether about 10 hours, 6, 7
And
hours a day. And then a couple hours yesterday. I don't think I heard anybody ask you about that, you know.
I asked. I mean, I've not seen my brothers for decades. So you know, I mean, with Sean, who I talk about, is 2 years older than me. We don't get on. You know, I'm not sure. As I tried to explain in my book, I'm not sure if it's because of the experiences I had and we had together, or you know, it's just siblings being siblings. But I did say to one of them when I contacted them not long ago that you know, can you tell me anything about my birth? And he said to me, we're not allowed to talk about that.
Huh.
And I said, why not? And he said, we were told never to speak about your birth. And I said, well, you can now because we're adults, you know. And he said, I'm not going to tell you anything. And I said, because I don't think my parents are my parents. And I said, is that true? And he just says, you know, we can't say, you know. Well, why can't you say? So there is, you know, there is this thing about, you know, whether I am or not. I don't feel that I am. I haven't felt that for a long time. So you know, you know, it's difficult because you don't know really where you come from.
Man, and that's got to be part of that trauma also, you know. And I hate to ask some of these tough questions, you know, but I know you obviously wanted to talk about it, or you would never wrote a book, you know. But I know.
You know,
Go ahead.
I appreciate the questions anyway. You know, I don't shy away. I mean, if I can answer any questions that people ask me, I do. You know, if I don't know the answer, I can't give one. I always say that as well. You know, so I'm very straightforward, and I mean, I'm very easy to get along with.
I just noticed that your mother, I can see your parents being the biological, and I hate even talk because I don't know how to go about saying it, you know, but because I don't know how I'd react, you know. But I could see your two older half brothers that are 20 years older than you being, you know, from your mother if she worked during World War II, you know, because during World War II, then I would assume she was probably, I don't think you're that old, you know. Like, may I ask what your age is?
I'm 55,
So I
but
don't know the
you know,
math, but she would have been older, you know, which is possible for sure, you know. But I don't know. That was something I was wanting to ask you because I've been doing a lot of thinking about the babies being dropped off at doorsteps, orphanages. Are they just all byproducts of kids that didn't have any parents, you know, or parents that couldn't take care of their kids, or kids in orphanages that lost parents during wars, or what's up with the Cabbage Patch Kids? And then we hear orphan trains and repopulation centers, or repopulation of the West here in the United States. And just then you start thinking about Dr. David Jacobs' work with abductions, with integration, you know, with hybrids and things like that. Then what better way to go stealth mode with integration, you know, than orphanages, you know. But I don't know, still kind of looking into that. But where would you like to start? I know we kind of warming up to it, but where would you like to start, Michael?
Anyway, you like, you know, if you continue to ask me questions, it's better for me if you do that.
Let's kind of go back then. When did all this start? Well, I think I heard you say age 4 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah, you often find though with abductees, they often tell you that it's around 4. Funny enough, the ages seems to be for everyone. You know, in the UK and the United States, a lot of abductees often say it's from the age of 4. But yeah, mine happened, you know, with Sean. We had what would be now known, as a classical daylight disc, encounter. When we were living in the school, we come out. I remember being a hot summer holiday. The school was closed. My dad had been in the school at the time, with the cleaners because they're still looking after the school for, getting it ready for when it opens after the 6-week holiday. And me and Sean were outside playing on the grass, which was just adjacent to what would be the kitchen of our house. And we were having to kick a ball, playing football, or I guess soccer, in the United States terminology. We're kicking the ball around, and, Sean then said to me, why don't we go and take a walk, around the school grounds? So, Sean picked up the ball and we went down this grassy, slopey hill that was there. And, we walked around the school to where the large school hall was, like the gymnasium. So there was 2 concrete stone platforms, raised up. So there was a staircase on one, and then he went up to another staircase. And Sean went up onto the first platform, and I was actually at the bottom of it. I remember looking at red fire ants. Funny enough, I was just, crouched down looking at them. And it was then at some point that I heard Sean say, what is it? What is it? What is that? And I looked around, and I walked towards where he was, and he was pointing up at the sky at something. And when I looked in the direction of his finger, basically, I could see this, shiny object which was moving around the sky, in between. There was only a few clouds in the sky. And, I guess it was the sun was reflecting off its metal. But it was, a classical disc-shaped craft. I mean, during the 1970s, we didn't have any, anything like that, really. We didn't see anything like that. So there was nothing, if people asked, there was nothing that could influence what we see or anything. As I explained, in the 1970s in the UK, the channels on the TV were only 3 channels. And the children often acted as the remote control for the parents, turning it. Otherwise we used to get a clip around the ear if we didn't do it. And as I explained as well, even with the TV, me and Sean, we wasn't allowed to watch TV unless the parents and mum and dad was with us, and there was nothing on the TV anyway during the 70s that could influence anything we see or any encounters we had. And as I say, most of the time we were, because it was a Roman Catholic church, we were at the church a lot of the time. And when we wasn't, we were doing homework or we were in the school doing stuff. So, we didn't have a lot of time for anything else. But yeah, we saw this craft. And, the odd thing was as well, is in that area of London where I was, it was a really busy, area of London. So there's lots of activity. It's a weekday. There's lots of activity going on around us. There was lots of, warehouses. They were unloading and loading up lorries. There was a really busy police station that's still there to this day, where there was lots of police cars that used to come in and out with their sirens and lights blaring, going up and down the road. And so, I wonder, I've often wondered if anyone else see this, what me and Sean observed, this metallic saucer type disc-like craft in the sky, over London. So, I'm wondering if anyone else see it. But the thing is that when we were looking at the craft, both of us entered an altered state of consciousness, I would say now, where the environment around us suddenly went quiet. And it's like, why, as I explained in the book, it's what the British investigative researcher at the time, Jenny Randalls, who coined the phrase the Oz factor, when she explained, the location sometimes with paranormal activity or sightings of craft, the immediate environment seems to change somewhat. So all sounds around you will suddenly become quiet, or there'll be some sort of change to the environment as well. But when we were in this state of, altered state, it seemed like we'd experienced missing time, because when I come out from this altered state of consciousness first, and I felt disorientated. It's almost like when you're being awoken from walking in your sleep, sleepwalking, and suddenly someone wakes you up and you're not sure where you are. And I felt also very afraid, like something had happened. I couldn't explain what it was. And Sean was the same, but Sean come out of his a little bit later. When I looked across at him, he was almost like in a zombie-like state. And when I looked at the sky, this object had disappeared, it'd gone. But when I called out to Sean, he gradually come back to, to this reality, I guess. And but at the time, I felt I wanted to get away. I needed to get away from this area. And I just started to run back to, to the house where I knew my dad was at the time. He was having a break. He was with my mum in the kitchen, having a bite to eat before going back to work. And Sean followed. But I remember that when we were running back to the house, we were looking at the sky, scanning the sky for this object, looking up, but we couldn't see it. And I remember we rushed back into the house, and, because we run through the door very quickly, we sort of startled our mum, scared my mum. And Dad had he had a go at us for scaring mum. So and we told him what had happened, but the reaction is that it's okay, just go back to playing on the field next to the house, just be in sight where we can see you, but that's all that was said. But years later, I asked Kevin, one of my older brothers, and he said it was still spoken about this, what we'd see, and what had happened. So that was the beginning, really, and that one was with Sean.
And I believe this is from the same experience from that you're speaking of, chapter 4 of your book. Daylight Saucer, I believe.
That was it, yeah.
You said, quote, whilst preparing this narrative, I asked Sean if he could recall this encounter pertaining to the saucer from our childhood. And he said he could. I could not help wondering over the years he had revisited this memory and did not believe it had taken place until many years later. When he asked the question by the only person who could ask him, his younger brother, who was with him on that day. So do you think that Sean, do you think that he remembers all these memories of these things that happened when y'all were younger, but he just tries to bury it deep down inside?
Well, I did have an opportunity. You see, I've not seen Sean for a long, long time, but I had an opportunity because somebody passed in, on a, one of the cousins in the family, and I had an opportunity to speak to him. Obviously, I wanted to ask him if I could put his name in the book, and he said I could, and I asked him, about that, and I asked him about a few other experiences, and he said he remembered them, and that times he did think, did he just, imagine it? But when I started to talk about it, he knew, he remembered. But I think, I think Sean experienced trauma as well as a child, and very much so as a teenager. And he got into trouble quite a lot with the police, and he acted up, and he was drinking a lot, and sometimes I do wonder if it was because of those experiences that he had. And as I explain in the book, I went on to have more and more and more, and I continue to do so to this day. But I don't know if Sean did, because we stopped our relationship sort of it changed. And so I don't know, and I often say that on podcasts, I don't know if it continued for Sean, because we didn't speak.
What you mentioned a while ago about the Oz factor. You briefly explained a little bit, but can you go a little bit more in detail about the Oz factor for those who are unfamiliar with it? I'm sure people are familiar. They just haven't really heard the term.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, it was coined by the British investigative researcher Jenny Randalls, and she was at one time the director of Bufora in the UK, which is the equivalent of MUFON in the US. Yeah, it was her that coined. It was her that coined this particular phrase. It's taken from the Wizard of Oz, where she says that some people are able to experience, some people are able to experience this type of phenomena whilst other people do not. And for some reason, it seems that they entered into this type of altered state of consciousness where, it's like somebody could be standing next to you and you could be looking at something in the sky, like at a UAP or UFO, depending on what phrase you prefer to use. And, you could be standing in a group of 10 people, maybe two of those out of that 10 people see these craft, whilst the other 8 people won't see it. So she's explained that it's, for some reason, some people are excluded from seeing from seeing that craft or having experiences with this particular type of, phenomenon. So, and often with the Oz factor as well, it seems to be like if you're out in the woods or in the forests and something happens, it normally the wildlife in the immediate environment you're in seems to suddenly go quiet, or if there's cars along the highway, normally, if there's a lot of traffic normally on a particular road, normally it suddenly vanishes, like it suddenly stops.
It's kind of like the observer effect.
Yeah.
Also, it's just like, the saying, just because if a tree falls, if a tree falls in the forest, you won't hear it. You won't hear it. But,
no.
But, did it make a sound or did it not make a sound? It's the observer that depicts, I see what you're saying. And let me pull another quote. Oh, if you have something to go ahead and say, Michael.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it does, this type of phenomena though does seem to happen a lot around, when people have sightings of these craft, or very much so when you have abductees that are being taken from the roadside, in cars. This type of silence effect seems to be quite prevalent in those times. So perhaps it's to do with the frequency that these craft give off, but something to do with the propulsion system that affects the environment. I think it could be that.
And I pulled this from chapter 3, Invisible Friends.
Sure.
You said, quote, I did not have to wait long because one of my friends suddenly appeared in front of me. I looked up at him and he gazed down at me, smiling. He was wearing the same tight-fitting uniform as before. The outfit looked as though it had just been removed from its packaging. Time stood still that day as I looked into his eyes. I felt like the walls had fallen away and all external sounds no longer existed outside the room. His mind was communicating with mine. I later learned this phenomenon was called the Oz factor. And go on to say, his eyes held me in a trance-like state, and I could recall nodding my head as his words vibrated inside my head. Much later in my life, I felt that this being had not been addressing the outer visible me, but instead an unidentified aspect of me he knew on another level. And this part of me had been transferring data to him. Suddenly I was jolted out from wherever I had been, and for a moment I was disoriented, confused and shaking. Man, that's wild. Is this whenever was this the first abduction that you went through?
Well, the thing is with the Nordics, these were, I didn't know what they were at the time. For me at the time, they were my parents thought they were invisible friends, I guess. But these particular beings used to appear to me again around, the age of 3 or 4 years old. Sean was never present then, but and I don't know if he had contacts with these type of beings, but I did. Normally there was a male and a female, but sometimes there was a male on their own, one of the male from the female, but sometimes there was another one that I used to see. And normally, they would play, sometimes they would play games with me, like follow the leader. I remember one. And other times they would communicate and talk to me. But as I explain in the book, unfortunately, I don't remember what was said. I'm very strong visually, remembering things visually rather than audioly, by listening. But when I see things, I remember details quite well. But yeah, I did have contact with these, but I'm not sure if this was an abduction as such. In the book, I do explain I'm not sure if they were friendly or if they were something else, because it seemed like after a while of seeing these, it was then that I started to have contact with the Greys. Again, I didn't know what they were. It was only much later on when I was doing research into what was happening to me that I learned that there was these particular beings that were, the ones I was having contact with, they were known as the Greys, or they are obviously known as the EBEs, extra biological entities, or there are various names. But I often wonder though, because when I was having these experiences, I felt fear from whatever had happened. I often questioned if it was a good experience, why would I be afraid? And I was often afraid. I was often running in fear, in fright, in terror from these particular beings, like something had happened when I'd had a missing time, when I entered an altered state, and when I was, when I suddenly snapped out of it again, this confusion, this heart beating, and wanting to get away from that room as quickly as I could, but I know people have had contact with them, and they've had positive experiences, but and I'm not treading on anyone's feet here. This is just my own experiences and my own trying to understand what these experiences were at that time from my childhood, so it's only my own view, and no one, and I'm not saying anything about anyone else's experiences. So
yeah, a lot of people in the community, you have it's two sides of the coin, that
sure.
there's good and evil, benevolent, malevolent. But then the other side is that they're all good, and to me, could they merely just, if they are just no bad ETs, which I don't agree with that, but let's just say that they're all good, they mean well, could they just merely, or is that just our phrase? Is that our term, that our dialect that we put on it, that spin that they're bad? What I mean is, because they merely treat us, they can merely treat us like we do cattle and chicken. We may not
Sure.
hate cattle and chicken and wish to traumatize them while we bring them to the slaughterhouse, but we are the apex predator to them, and they are our food source. Like to them, we look evil, but to them, they're just trying to survive, or it could, or we could be wanting to experiment on them. That doesn't mean we're evil. It's just that we're so superior than they are, and we don't look at it that way, that. But what do you think? I think there's good and bad out there, but I'm just saying, I hear that what I said out there, and it makes me think, like, are they really trying to do harm? Which I think, hell, you touch my damn daughter, like I will do the best I can to kill your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I don't know if I have a chance against a 7-foot tall reptilian or whatever, but like I'm gonna fight for my daughter's life. Like, don't touch my damn daughter. Leave, I don't care who you are, what you are, how much powerful you are. Leave her out of the equation.
Sure.
But kind of getting off topic, but so what do you think about that, Michael?
Well, I have my experiences and I have knowledge of other things, but you know what? If you want me to be truthful and lay it down, I would have to say to you
Hell yeah,
that
lay it down, Michael.
most of the races that are on the planet at the moment do not have the best interests of humanity at heart. And that's not just because of the experiences I've had, and there are there are probably millions and millions of people all over the world that have had experiences similar to mine. But on the flip side of the coin, there are benevolent ones here as well. There are not many, but there are some here. There will be more in the future. As we go further into the future, you will see a lot more benevolent type of beings on the earth and communicating with human beings. But at the present time, you have a lot here that have their own agendas. They work with the United States military, they work with the British military, but not the traditional military that you see. These are much more what would be, I guess, best in the black operatives, and private organizations, but and some of the alphabet agencies. But there are, like you said, it's a flip side of the coin. There's good and bad with all races, but some people seem to think that because you've lived a long time that you're going to be very spiritual and wise. You're not. You're not. You might be, with the Greys, we know they're very technological. They've got advanced technology. But doesn't mean they're wise. Doesn't mean they're going to be benevolent.
Wisdom doesn't come from how much they know, from knowledge. To me, wisdom comes from experience, from trials and tribulation, from
But the Greys, the Greys have been on the earth a long time, and they've had agendas since biblical times, long before biblical times. They've been on the earth. The abduction programs, as I call them, they're not new. They've been going on for centuries. They've been taken, but what you'll find is that when you leave the earth and your soul survives the body, you travel. I guess I could say to what would be a spirit world, another dimension, which is very close to the planet itself. But if you'd been, as an example, if you'd been around like centuries ago, let's just say you were around in biblical times, and you were somebody in the Middle East, and you were taken by these particular beings, the Greys, who have, they control quite a lot of the abduction programs. They're not the leaders of it, but they do, obviously they play their part. And a lot of the time we have implants. You have implants in your etheric field, so in the electromagnetic or biochemical field around your body, which every living being has. We have implants in those fields, and these implants in the field, when you come back here, say through reincarnation, you're reborn onto this planet. These implants, although you come back in a different body, or as the Greys call them, containers, the implants in that field come with you.
It's not a physical implant.
No,
the one you're talking about. This is something that. So this relates to outer body abductions, also, right? Is that because I was wanting to ask you about that. That's fascinating that you brought that up. About the field, your residence, or whatever, the around your body, that have implants, your essence, and because we hear people talk about, and you also do too, about our body abductions. Sure. But the thing is, how does that work? Like, what are they doing if you're if you're just pure energy? Like, what are they abducting if you're not in your physical form? And that makes sense. I could see, okay, you know, I could see that. Like,
yeah, I mean, do you have implants? Do you have implants that are put into? What I'm saying is the abduction program's been going on centuries. So, it's only now, I guess, we've become much more aware of the abduction programs. But again, the abduction programs target children. It starts from children. It starts from a very young age. Often it can start as a baby. It can start in the mother's womb even. And as an infant, as I often say, the child becomes the adult. The adult then is the child. So, and they often take, if you're an adult and you've been taken by these particular beings, you will have a being, whether you remember it or not, you will have been taken as a child. They don't take you randomly as an adult. You will be on their programs, and you would have been a child abductee. So they're not taking you randomly. You're taken because you don't remember the past experiences you've had. And but when you come back here, and your brain is activated because you're alive, so the electrical impulses from your brain switches these implants back on. So when they're switched back on, you're basically then monitored. You're detected. So you're basically on the radar again. They're able to detect you and monitor you, and eventually they will take you. But when you're on these programs, it's very difficult to get off of them. And the people have come up with different types of theories and ideas on how to stop it. You can't stop it. It goes deeper than that. You have to understand about soul projects and soul contracts. We don't have a contract with them, but we do have soul contracts. But the contracts that we have, when we come here, they are basically taken away, so that we have like a false contract with these beings, which we don't agree to. We don't agree to these, but because we've been, for me, for instance, I've been taken by these particular entities, by these particular beings, but I know that I've been taken before, centuries ago. I've come backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards many times to this planet, at different time periods. We all do. And when I've come back here, these implants that I have in my field, they've been switched on again. And and sometimes this is when you can tell the difference between when the military abduct through the milab programs, the military abduction programs. They often put implants in the physical body. The Greys tend to do it through the etheric field. We do have some, obviously, that they put into the the nose cavity, the nasal areas, and sometimes in the here in your hand. But generally speaking, though, a lot of it is when it's found in the body, it's military related. And in the etheric field, it's the Greys that do that. They're very interested in the biochemical field of humans, very interested in their soul.
And something that we've heard in the community for a while, that especially Greys, they don't have souls. And that's the reason why they're experimenting on us. Possibly maybe that's one variable. That's one ornament on the tree of their malevolent acts, is that one part of the experiments of the abductions is that they're trying to learn something about the soul. They know that's what's unique about us, and they maybe want to replicate it. Maybe they need it. They need it to be able to transcend into other dimensions. Maybe they're stuck. What's your thoughts on that before I go forward?
Well, the Greys, I don't think the Greys are stuck as such, because the Greys are multi-dimensional beings. They do have access to a lot they have access to the fourth dimension, astral realms, where a lot of us go when we sleep at night. A lot of the time, this is where your dreams are made. When we have symbols in our head from dreams that we've had, it actually comes from this realm. We actually have experiences within this realm, but our mind filters it through into our, our unconscious filters it through into our waking mind as symbols, and we remember it as symbols. But everyone in the nighttime, when you sleep, your body leaves your physical body. Your astral body, it will leave your body, and even if it just floats above where you're sleeping, it's about it recharges. But you can learn to remove it from your body with focus. You can consciously leave your body and travel either into your immediate environment. You can move through physical matter, and a lot of the time you're flying around. You can fly around outside the earth to other locations around the world. There's pretty much, you can go to most places. There are some places that have higher security levels where you can't go to, but most certainly you can go into the astral realms, the fourth dimension, which immediately surrounds the earth. And you can do it, which is literally like a virtual reality. So you can do quite a lot of stuff there, and everyone can do this. It's not you've got to have some people are better at it than others, but we all do it. It's natural to all of us. Everyone can do this. Just like remote viewing, everyone can do remote viewing. It's just some people can do it better than others. Like any type of skill, I guess it's the more you do it, the better you become at it. So, and again, these are natural abilities. So no one's special because they have these and can do it.
What how do the abduction process take place in the astral realm? You know what I mean? That's always kind of mind boggled me. Which I'm open to everything. I've come across too much material because as soon as you say something that isn't possible, boom, then you're confronted with something like, damn, yep, it was true. Something, but how does that happen? Like, I could see you being abducted in this physical meat suit, but how does it happen? Like, walk us through the process of because you spoke about being abducted through the astral realm also. How does that happen? Because they're not taking you from your bed, your physical body, into a spacecraft. How does that happen?
I think sometimes I think there's two reasons for that. I think it all depends on your skill set. My skill sets lie sort of in those type of realms. Like with what would be able to move outside your body easily, and your consciousness is it's moving in a different way to some other people. It's like I think it's easier as well to abduct people from outside the body because if you think about it, a lot of abductions, they take place in the middle of the night or in the early hours of the morning, so there is a reason for that. It's also because people entered altered states of consciousness at certain times during the early hours of the morning. It's often I won't say for everyone, but for me, it's often in the witching hours of 3 o'clock in the morning, and between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So in between them times, for me, is where I experience a lot of trauma. Even now, I start to experience fear, I guess. But and a lot of the time, we've had abductions where people have been taken, out of their cars. They normally have a light that shines in through the window screen, and then they often have described, going through the window screen of the car, the windshield of the car, and going up into this light. Often when they look back, they can see their physical bodies are still present in the car. This is because their etheric field, their astral field, has been pushed out of the body by using these type of beams. It's possible there's some type of electromagnetic, pulse or energy of some sort that's able to do this. But this is why I say the greys are multi-dimensional. They have access to many places that we at the moment are not aware of. So for me, a lot of my abductions have taken place where when I've left the body and they're waiting for me outside of the body in my immediate environment in the astral, in the astral level, in the astral levels, and they're able to take me in this way, and move me into different areas, depending on what it is they want me to do. But then, but another thing, what happens is with the military, on the military projects as well, I've been taken out of the body by, military personnel and literally tortured whilst I've been outside of the body. Because you're in a spiritual body doesn't mean nothing. Your spiritual body can feel, you can feel pain. And your etheric field can be damaged as well. And sometimes when you're outside the body and you do have, you have damage to your etheric field, when you come back to the body, it can appear on your physical body.
Wow.
Because you're re-emerging, you're coming back into your, and you're part of, your spirit body is part of the physical still, because it's carrying it whilst it's in this realm. We're all attached by a silver cord. So when we do move out, we come back. But a lot of abductions do take place outside of the body, and I think we're becoming much more aware now that this type of phenomena, it's not just isolated to one thing, and it's not just UAPs, and it's not just alien abduction, and it's not like Bigfoot and the Dogman and the cryptozoology and paranormal. It's all related. It's all joined together. It all fits. But and even with the demonic energies, with demon type energies. But some people just say, I'm sure you've heard this yourself, that the demons are the greys. They're not. The greys and the demons are two different types of beings. They have their own agendas, and I'm pretty sure they know of each other's existence, because they move through the same type of environments. It's just that they're different, and they have different agendas towards human beings. And again, with the demonic energies are like the greys. They go back centuries, and they have a history with human beings, which isn't often good.
I was going to ask you about that, because you do have people in the community that that think that we're dealing with one force, with one thing, like with the supernatural beings, entities, and aliens,
Sure.
ETs, that they're one and the same. It just depends on this, kind of like the observer effect. How do we observe it? That if we see an alien, it's going to be an alien. If we see an apparition in our bedroom, it's a supernatural entity.
Sure.
It depends on how we observe it and look at it through our lens, through our filters. So, but how do you differentiate between the two? Because you think they're two clearly different things. And I as of right now, I tend to agree. I have kind of bounced back and forth with that idea, but how do you differentiate between the two? Because a lot of times they can have same characteristics, because you say aliens can abduct you through the astral realm, right? And entities, supernatural entities, can also attack you psychically in the astral realm.
Sure. I think it's just become, I think it's, for me, from my own experiences, and when you're traveling outside the body, you do see a lot of different type of beings, and you come to that understanding that they are, they certainly know of each other's existence, but each of them have a different type of agenda towards human beings. The greys have a lot of projects and programs for human beings. They're involved in human trafficking. harvesting of human beings and their body parts, in like you said, in the same way as we, hunt we hunt animals and we eat animals, but a lot of these, beings that are, I would say that are outside the parameters of natural law, which, that would make it illegal, really. From a higher being's perspective, they are breaking universal laws, and with their activities, but I've had contacts with with the greys, with the shadow beings, with demonic energies. So each one
I
of them
firmly
are.
believe that there is a connection in some form or fashion with the alien phenomena.
I have no idea what that was.
But it's and also the thing is that when people, it's also how you feel about them, your energy, if you feel fear and you feel the energy is not good, obviously that's not going to be good for your, it's not going to be good for you, is it? It all depends again in determining what their intentions are towards you. If they're like the greys, the greys come in, for as an example, in the middle of the night, and they're taking you, they're taking a child from. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was at a show once. I was at a conference once, and there was a guy up there. I think he was from Belgium, a ufologist, and he was talking about crop circles, and he done a really good talk. But then somebody asked him about alien abduction, and he blew my mind away with his stupidity. And he was like saying, "Oh, it's all fine. You haven't got to worry nothing about that. It's okay." But what I didn't realize was at the time he had his two children with him at the back of the audience. And if I'd have known that, I would have put my hand up and said something about that and said, if it's okay, then how would you feel then if these particular beings come into your house and they took your children and you wasn't able to do a thing about it? Would you be fine by that? Or if somebody come into your house like a human being and they removed your children from your house into their car, what would your first thought be, apart from trying to help them, get them back? You'd call the police, but you can't call the police with these particular beings when they take you. So it's not all fine, is it, really? So when they're abducting their children, they are basically breaking the law. It doesn't matter if they're from outside of the earth or not. It's still illegal. They're still breaking the law. And they need to be answerable to somebody. But at the moment, there's no one that can, apprehend them.
I'd be ready to open up a can of alien whoop ass on there, like, nah, leave.
And so you should.
I don't want to be abducted. I don't. But don't fuck with my daughter though.
No, but it's as I explained as well, some people are afraid of you, because they feel that it's going to happen to them if you're around. Like some people, as I say, some people look at, they look at movies and they're looking at, horror films, or they're looking at someone who's being abducted. But when they come into contact with somebody who actually has, and they know they have, and they're having these experiences, it causes a lot of fear in people, because they feel, it's like I was invited once to somebody's house, and to go to a party, and somebody told them that I was an abductee, and they wanted to understand what that was. And when it was explained to them, I got a call basically saying, "Don't ever come to my house." And they feel that it's going to happen to them. It doesn't work that way. You're either on the project programs or you're not. And
it's a social it's still a social stigma. Like people, like I'll be the one. Even if I wasn't into this stuff, man, like I was always fascinated by just weird things, by random things, by just bizarre things I didn't know much about. I was always fascinated by it. Maybe that's that fascination what led me to on the road that I am today. But I'll be the one over there in the corner talking to you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
People are afraid of what others are going to think of. Oh, you're talking about alien abductions with Michael? Kameron, oh, you're not my friend no more. You know, like it's still a social stigma, though.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I still consider it. Although we are more open now about these type of subjects, I often say though, with alien abductees, alien abduction, I still believe it's a taboo subject. Even in ufology, it's still considered to be out there a little bit. Looking at seeing a UAP in the sky, is one thing, but then taking it to the other level of somebody or a group of people who are having these experiences have been taken, removed from their cars, or told to go to a particular place to be abducted, or removed from their bed, either physically or from outside of the body. Then it's difficult for people sometimes to understand that, even people within the UFO communities. So yeah, I do agree with you on that.
And see, also, don't take this the wrong way, Michael, but you're not allowed to say UAP no more. It's UFO.
Okay. No, I'm just saying that,
I'm just messing with you, man.
But some people do, I mean, I'm old school really, but it's like a UFO. But then, you got the military's interpretation of it now as UAP, and I'm pretty sure that's a little bit programmable for some reason.
They have to make it more catchier towards the ones that don't want to talk to Michael Kameron at a party about, you know what I mean? Like they got to make it more suitable, something new, fresh for those types of people.
I'll be chatting to the girls anyway, so
So what, back to the abduction thing, what do you think? And I know maybe I ask you speculate, but the thing is, I'm a firm believer that high octane speculation can fuel someone else's imagination to where they write a book to where it's just groundbreaking or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like somebody that's listened to your
sure.
So what do you think is going on with the abduction? Like, what's the agenda at play here with the alien grays or other ETs? I guess we just stick with the grays in comparison to milabs, the military abductions. And I guess you can bring in the astral realm too. But what's the sole agenda here? I know you're going to have probably two different agendas from different sides, the military and the grays, but what's going on here, Michael? After years of pondering this, what do you think as of right now? What's your gut tell you what's going on? What's the picture?
Well, a lot of people have the experiences, especially, the females where their babies are taken. You were talking about the hybrids. The hybrid projects are quite prevalent in these type of fields, creating maybe a different species or a species that can interact with us, hidden in plain sight sometimes. I wouldn't say they're here to destroy us. I believe they need us, but not for a good reason.
They need us just like we need cows and chickens.
I would say that this is their playground. This is their playground, and they've been playing in it for a long time with their own rules that we don't understand. And this is one of the reasons why they get away with so much. But they are interested in abductees for another reason. They're interested in their source code.
What's that? What's that, Michael?
The source code.
Explain a little more about that.
The source code, well, I can't say too much because of the alphabet agencies that may listen in, but the source code is very important to them. It is something that they've been trying to find for a long time, but the source code is hidden inside each abductee. It's a source of information that is basically very much linked to the creator and creation itself. It's information that they actually want. They've been trying to obtain it for centuries, but they've not been able to, at the moment, find it. But every abductee, whether they know this or not, has a source code. And it's almost like a genetic breakdown of how things were created. The Greys will tell you they created human beings. It's nonsense. They never did. But and it's also, the source code's very important to certain alphabet agencies for the information that it contains. But as I said, as I was told, outside of the body, we don't hide a very important secret in a place that is easily able to be found. It's hidden inside, not the body, but it's hidden inside, the soul, I guess. But even despite their technology, they still can't locate it.
Wow. So I guess go give us more about what you think the ultimate agenda is because I interrupted you about the source code. I was wanting to know about that. What the ultimate agenda is with the Greys and the milabs, with the abductions.
Well, the milabs are a lot different, aren't they? The milabs have a lot of agendas that go on. We have the Project Pine, the secret space program. You have Project Southern Cross, which is a time traveling project conducted by the United States and the UK as well. You have there's lots of projects that take place, and the military basically use the skills of, I would say, abductees or sensitives, and enhance those abilities to use for their own purposes. So and they're not based just on the Earth. A lot of milabs, are taken off world, and you've got two different types of milabs. You've got those that serve in the military that are taken. For instance, you may be going to, say the Middle East or to Iraq or somewhere like that. But if you're on these programs, you'll be taken from the aircraft, and you'll be taken somewhere else to fight in a different war. But when you return back, you'll go back on those aircraft and be, and when you touch down, you'll go back home, and you think you've been to that area, the Middle East, say, when in fact you've been off world doing something else. There's the milabs have a lot of projects going on. There's hundreds and thousands of projects and programs that are taking place at any one time, in various locations around the United States and the world. So, for them, it's a little bit different. But for the Greys, though, I think it is, again, I think it is a mixture of different agendas that they have going, not particularly one agenda, but multiple agendas, where they have, I guess, some sort of benefit from that. Almost like trading humans.
So you said, I don't know if you can hear my baby in the background, but I'm telling you, Michael, like I would do I don't care if it was a 7-foot reptilian in front of me or whatever. Like I'm gonna do I will fight till my last breath, and
that's something to be admired.
And just to know that, okay, but they do it when you're asleep. To me, that's just cowardly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But ever since she's 10 and a half months old now, and ever since she came into this world, my life view has changed on some of these topics. Like, yes, I've heard people talk about these things and things like that. Like people talk about their kids, but it's a totally different thing whenever you bring one into the world and you start talking about these topics. You know what I mean? It's like it puts this fire inside of you. Like, I don't know. What are you about to say though?
Yeah, I think, she's got good genes, good DNA.
Yeah.
But you know what though? That's to be admired, and you should fight, because they come off well doesn't mean nothing.
But the thing is, what can we truly do? You know what I mean? The only thing that when it boils down to it, that's just because if people, if like, what can we truly do? Because most of the time, we're going to be asleep when they're taking our kids. You know what I mean? Like, so the ego part of me is like, I will fucking whoop your ass. You know what I'm like? Excuse my French, but like, I guess the only thing we can do is just expose it, you know. But how do you expose what's going on when people just think you're a nut job? Rather it be milabs or rather it be gray abductions. Like, how do we fight back against it? How do we get, this is the disclosure that we need. This is what the congressional hearings need to be talking about, you know.
Well,
Because this, I'm sorry, this abduction thing relates just like what you said with human trafficking also.
Sure, you know? It does, yeah. And I mean, you do have people that do, you know, they talk about this side of it. The thing is, though, you know, with the abduction programs, whether it's milab or if it's the, you know, alien or you know, or non-humans, it's a difficult subject. People don't often want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear that they're lovely, you know, that they're positive, that they're benevolent, and that they're spiritual, and that they're here to help us. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of the time, they're not.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. But it's very hard to hear that, and I can understand why. You know why people don't want to hear that. And that's not, as I said, it's not to say that there are not positive ones here. There are positive ones here, but at the moment, they're the ones who run the show. And that's the reality. They're the ones that run the show here. The positive ones are here. They don't run the show. They do it. They run the show, you know. And a lot of the time there are benevolent ones here that just don't want to get involved at the moment. They stand to the side and they watch, and they won't interfere.
Because of the Prime Directive.
Because
you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
really?
Yeah, but yeah, they won't get involved, you know. But the ones that are here, you know, they're the ones that are more pointing towards negativity towards humans. You know, they've been here a long time and they still are. You know, they've got a, you know, we have a connection with the past. You know, by understanding the past, you get a better sense of why they're here and why they do what they do. So you know, it's understanding that ancient history really, which has been hidden from us. We get a lot more answers if we understood that more, and what happened in the past on this planet.
Do you think that you've brought up the past several times within this interview? So no, that's good. No, because you're making me think. So, and that's totally true. You know, we need to learn from the past so we don't repeat the same mistakes, you know, in the future from the past. You know, like, do you think that the Greys or whoever, the malevolent ones, were some behind? And of course, I'm asking you to speculate. You know, but
Sure.
But remember, I told you about the speculation part. It could ignite a switch in somebody else's brain. Do you think that they are the ones behind some of the cataclysmic events of the past, like you know, when people talk about the Younger Dryas period and you know, where life almost vanished off Earth, you know, either by an asteroid or by floods or whatever it was. Do you think whatever the event happened, do you think that these malevolent factions maybe had a helping hand in that?
I think the entire human history is a deception. Our history is much more than what we've been led to believe, and almost certainly these type of beings have interfered in our spiritual evolution on this planet, and they continue to do so to this day. Just try to, you know, to push it back, to stop us from being self-realized in who we are and where we come from and our great potential, you know, in moving forward as a species, as a, you know, as an individual and a collective consciousness. You know, a lot of the thing with the Greys is a lot of the time as well, they have a, you know, they have a hive mind. So they have a collective consciousness, but human beings are quite unique in that we have an individual consciousness. We have a choice. We can make choices, but we also have a collective consciousness. So we can act alone and we can act together. And a lot of the time, the Greys don't have that. And I think that's one of the things as well that could be quite productive in, dealing with these type of beings in the future.
Well said. And I'm trying to find a question that I've asked before within this. So here it is. I found it pretty quick. So you brought up like this hive mind, and you can look at this question however you want to look at it, Michael.
Sure.
Because this was kind of more of towards a artificial intelligence discussion.
I knew you were going to say that.
This was more of part of a that I had with Dr. Joseph Farrell, and I asked it with a few others also this year, but you can look at it however you want to, though. But do you think that one of the reasons for this great technological leap the past 100 years is due to this unseen shadow force, whatever this force is, like the malevolent ETs or like rogue factions here on Earth, that are humans or both,
sure. Yeah.
That manipulates society from the shadows? And if so, maybe one reason this force is possibly helping with the burst in technology is because this force, the shadow force, needs us to be their worker bees and work as a collective. That's why it made me thought of it, because you mentioned that. Work as a collective so that one day we can eventually merge with the machines and help this force finally have the technology to leave this prison planet. And the reason for them wanting us to merge with the transhuman artificial intelligence is so that we can survive in space and be their slaves off planet. They know if we merge with the machines, we'll be their perfect slave species that can survive the vastness of space. Because right now, they say our meat suits, it's hard for us to survive in space with the elements and stuff, so what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think artificial intelligence is here, but artificial intelligence at the moment is in the background. I think we're going to see a lot more of artificial intelligence that is not programmed by human beings being active in our world. We've often thought that being humans, we're in control of a lot of things, and we can, and of course, artificial intelligence can be programmed, but I think a lot of human beings are going to be quite shocked to learn that there are, that there are types of artificial intelligence that are not being programmed by humans. They act alone.
They're being programmed by the Greys, because also I've interviewed Daryl Sims, and other people also, they talk about how they were made, or that they are very robotic in nature, the Greys. Maybe not all the Greys, maybe just one certain breed or faction, but they're very robotic in nature. Maybe they have you sensed any of that? Like, are they some type of advanced AI, or some of the Greys that maybe you've encountered?
I don't really know. I mean, it's possible, but almost certainly, I would say that a lot of the non-humans, even the the benevolent ones, they work with artificial intelligence, and I think as we go forward, even into a brighter world on the Earth, I think it's only going to be a matter of time when we are going to be much more in an environment which is artificially intelligent, and working side by side with artificial intelligence to some degree. But I've been given information recently whilst outside of the body about the Earth and its creation, and I was told that this planet was created specifically by artificial intelligence. And this is the reason why it is considered to be a virtual reality playground.
I've discussed that a few times also. Yes,
So,
this year.
I was told that, each planet in our in our solar system is an information center. And but this planet is not the original Earth for humans.
Explain
It
a
was
little more
created.
on that.
This is the information, and when I'm outside the body, I have interactions with certain beings, that are human and more advanced, shall we say, spiritually. Um, that in they inhabit the what would be the fifth realm or casual plane. So very much like ascended masters or immortals, human immortals, if you were, you know, um, or the archangels. So as it's been explained to me, um, this planet is not the original planet where humans were created on. This is in a way it's a it's been created by artificial intelligence to and maybe this is the reason why these particular beings come here and do what they do, and are able to take us.
So,
But outside of this universe, I've been told there is another planet that where human beings originally come from, and at the moment it's off limits. No one's allowed to go there unless they're accompanied by one of these particular beings. And so all life, including the greys, reptilians, or or any other type of beings, they're not allowed. They're prohibited from entering this space unless accompanied by one of these higher beings. It's basically within these particular fields, each race knows this. It's a bit like the Antarctica. They say the Antarctica, it's a particular area where a lot of VIPs tend to go, to discuss or have meetings, and no one's allowed to commit any type of threats there. It's a sort of a neutral place, location, and it's a bit like that, I guess. You can only go there for a specific reason, or if you're invited to do so for a specific reason, but you can't go there if you know of this location, which some of these other species do. They're not allowed to go there, and to do so would be dangerous for them. But it's and if this is true, this is what I was told. But if this is true, it maybe answer quite a lot of questions about our history, and we'd get a lot of answers, about who we are. And as I was told, the original human beings were closer to the creator, and they had specific abilities, but something happened, and these abilities were genetically altered and removed to some degree by these other races, and then human beings were placed here where we are now on this planet, which was originally created and crafted by artificial intelligence. So I'm not sure what to make of that, but the source that I got it from is reliable.
fascinating. Is it because they can't go there because of they lack the type of consciousness or soul that we do? They don't have that same spark that humanity does, and maybe that's what makes us special. Maybe that's why they are abducting us, because they are trying to get whatever that spark is, that soul essence, whatever it is. They want to extract that. Maybe that's one part of the abductions, because they want to go to that other realm, that other world, or
they'll never be able to go there. They would never be able to go there, despite what technology they have and what they will never be allowed to go there. There are beings out there that are much more powerful than these type of beings, and to do so would be the end of them, basically.
We got a few. Go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, it would be as far as I'm told, if anyone does go there, say for instance outside the body, they would only be invited to do so, but only with be guided there. They would have to go there with somebody. I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about the place, but I do know this is what I was told recently when outside the body, that this is not the original Earth where humans were seeded, so to speak. There is another place outside of this universe that exists, another world that is basically, it's not inhabited now, but it once was. And this is where human history began.
What happened, do you think?
Maybe a war. I don't know. Maybe a war.
Maybe this ties in. Maybe this ties into Dr. Joseph Farrell's his cosmic war, idea.
Possibly something happened, but apparently, what I was told is that human beings, when they were seeded here, they were very, very powerful, very spiritually aware, and very close to the Creator. Whoever, whatever your take is on that, but and they had specific abilities, and these abilities were removed, and their conscious awareness of these abilities and who they were and where they come from was removed as well. But as time went on and human beings evolved in certain ways, that seed of knowledge or wisdom and who, where we come from and our origins is still hidden. Perhaps this is, again, to do with the source code.
Very fascinating discussion.
Because the source is then, isn't it? It's the source would be creation or the Creator. So it's basically hidden information in your genetic, in your DNA. And we know that the Greys are very interested in their DNA and the genetic codes, and they're very advanced in obtaining, creating a hybrid. So, but I think there's aspects to this what they don't understand, and they're trying to understand it.
And maybe they are behind things like ancestry.com, 23andMe, all these DNA kits and all these DNA banks. And
I like the way you think.
And maybe even the swab from the past couple of years, maybe they're taking that. I don't know. Maybe there's something with the DNA, that is much deeper than what meets the eye. I think you're onto something there. I briefly heard other people mention it, but not quite to the detail that you did, and makes you wonder when there's something going on with the DNA and the genetics and things like that, because it does tie into the abductions and possibly, like I said, 23andMe, ancestry, and all, just everything.
I mean, it's always good to look into where these type of places have stemmed from, who they're, these genetic places, who they associate with, who funds them,
follow the money.
And often, yeah, exactly. And often who is it that influences them, and who's on their boards of directors and stuff like that. But, and who are the doctors involved, and what are their backgrounds, their education? Do they have, ties with the military or the pharmaceutical companies? If you do the research and you can follow the trail, you often find some sort of answer. And often it's a case it's quite nefarious.
But all those people you just mentioned, I think they're the minority when it comes to the pyramid structure. And what I like to know is, who do they report to? Like what's, and just like we've been talking about the Greys, and I think they're just one faction. I believe there's a force, there's an entity, there's a whatever it is that is much higher on that pyramidal structure.
Sure, I agree.
Hopefully we can get closer to the truth, before too long, and expose all this evil agenda, that the human faces, whether it be abductions, rather it be what's happened the past couple of years, you know, with everything that we face as a species before shit hits the fan, you know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I took a lot more now, you know, podcasts about as I said, you know, about the trauma side, the traumatic side of the PTSD, you know, because often is the case is that, you know, when we're talking about alien abduction, there's so many abductees out there, you know, that were the children, that are the adults with the fragmented memories, you know, and the effects, the after effects, the aftermath of that. So that's what I started to talk about more now, you know. I was like invited from you know, MUFON to the UAP, you know, to do the trauma related around abductees, from the UAP Medical Coalition, you know, and I gave an interview there and spoke about that, and I think, you know, and I think that's a good start, having people come forward and talk about their experiences and how it affects them, because it's not often spoken about, is it? You know, you got a long list of, you know, with complex PTSD, you have a long list of reasons why people, you know, experience trauma. One of the, you know, the top answers would be from the military, you know, from what the people in the military see and what they experience, what they undergo, you know, as you know, you yourself know. You know, but one of the only things that are on the list is basically anything to do with the, you know, the high strangeness or the paranormal or alien abduction. It's just not recognized. You know, there's a lot more going on in the United States for people like this than there are in the UK. There's nothing in the UK. Nothing exists at the moment in the UK for anyone who's abductee. There's no support groups. You know, there's nowhere we can go really to speak about it with the, you know, with the medical professions. You know, I know there is something beginning to happen now in the UK. There's, you know, with the UAP coalition in the United States are creating a counterpart in the UK. But, you know, but I do talk more about that because I think that's important as well.
Yeah.
With the abduction, you know, it's not just saying, you know, we've had these experiences, you know, I think because there's a lot of people out there suffering.
I guess last question. I usually like to try to ask this if I can remember, especially if, you know, if we talk about things that can be negative in nature, you know, do we have hope? Do we have hope, Michael, for humanity?
We have a lot of hope. We have a lot of hope.
How does the future look? How does the future look in your eyes? A lot of a lot more trials and tribulations, a lot more being, a lot of, you know, things are going to get, may get worse before they get better, which will only make us stronger on the other end.
Disclosure will never happen by the United States military. They will never give away their secrets because they got too much to lose. These talks that have been happening in the United States, they are of course historic. You know, they're very historical, but, you know, I think what what I've been told as well outside the body, they're very deceptive. The people that are given these talks have been chosen, pre-selected to give this information at this time. But there is a reason for that, for what's going to come next. So, but you know, the United States Congress have power, but they haven't got power over the people that run these projects. The people that run these projects and these programs have so much more power than Congress. Congress are out of their limits. You know, remember they were saying basically whenever we've asked for information, it's not been given to us. And also, you know, on a lot of these bases, if people in, you know, on the board of Congress or, you know, were sitting and they wanted to enter into some of these military, you know, deep underground military bases, they wouldn't get nowhere. They would never get into them, ever. But, you know, but for those that know, and, you know, for those to, you know, to reveal this information, they won't, because they would have to tell, basically, they've been in part of the abduction programs. They've been part of the milab programs. You know, they've been human trafficking, involved in human trafficking, you know, interfering with children. You know, very much involved with the arms races. You know, trafficking. You know, firearms. You know, and there's lots of dirty secrets they have, and to reveal, just anything to do with the UAPs or the UFOs, that's just a little piece of the of the cake. It would be too, if they were to reveal what they really get up to, they'd be finished. And this, what they're doing in the background is very lucrative to them. There's too much for them to lose. But what I would say is, I would say disclosure will come from us. It will come from those people that have experienced this type of phenomena, and and who are speaking out now in the milab communities. Those that are beginning to be deprogrammed and coming off of these projects and learning that they've had these experiences, and remember in aspects of these experiences, and then begin to come on your shows like yours and to begin to speak about it and bring the awareness. It doesn't matter if people don't believe us. It doesn't matter about that. What it matters is the people that do, the people are beginning to wake up. The people are becoming more and more aware. You work with those people. I've had these experiences, and I've had it all my, like many people. I've had people ridiculing me and saying this and saying that, and in them times it did hurt, but it hurts more when it comes from your family, because it, as I say, the knife cuts deeper than it would if it's somebody you don't know. But as time's gone on, I know that I've had those experiences. I can't say to you with my hand on my heart I've understood what they are, or that I know that what they are, because none of us do. And again, with what I've been talking about tonight, it's not the ultimate truth. It's just experiences I've had, and I've had information outside of the body, but it's not a science. It's information that I've got, and every single person that's that would be looking at this or listening to it, you'll have your own thoughts on that, but somewhere in this is some truth, and you decide what that truth is from your own your own experiences as well. So what I'm saying to you, everything I've told you, tonight, I've shared my experiences, some of them from my book, from my childhood and my teenage years, and any other information, like you said, it's, some of it's speculative, and some of it's, as I said, what I've got from these particular beings outside the body. But, only in time we will know really what's going on.
Yes. And I've said it many times. We all have, everybody has bits and pieces of truth.
Sure.
And even when yes, some of it, because it's hard to get 100% proof on these things, but even sometimes speculation is like dropping one seed. Could possibly be like dropping one seed, and that seed will grow up to be a tree to produce many fruits. And I would say each one of us holds a part of that puzzle inside of us. So in time we will be able to form a bigger picture. I agree. Yep.
And for going forward, though, I would say we have a really good future. It's a bright future, and at some point we will have checkmate.
Checkmate disclosure. Checkmate disclosure.
Checkmate over these other species as well. Doing what they do. I mean, the thing is, though, like with the Greys and many, especially the military, which sometimes, from my own experiences and many other people who've been on these projects and continue to be active on them, the human military is much more dangerous than many of the Greys. I've come into contact with both, and I would say the human element is much more dangerous, despite what the Greys do. And the Greys, and the ones I've come into contact with, are not good, but the way we treat each other is so much different to the way that they treat each other.
Yeah.
Humans are predators. They really are. And unlike animals who kill because they need to, human beings kill and hurt each other a lot of the time for fun. You know, it's a bit like, you know, if you have the ability to kill, as an example, doesn't necessarily mean you have to. You have a choice. Sometimes there's other ways of doing things.
But I do have a choice. Whenever they're messing with my daughter, I'll open up. I'll open up an alien can of whoop ass.
That's different, though.
Yeah,
I would join you.
Oh man,
I think they would run the hell out of your house if you confronted them.
But they're cowards, though. They're going to do it while we're sleeping, so like they always do. So, but
leave a trap for them.
I have something for them if I ever get my hands on one. Here we go, baby.
Woo.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I like that.
I'm ready for the alien apocalypse. I'm ready.
It's not you. You just don't. You do you open your envelopes with that as well?
Yes. I open my envelopes, cans, and you know.
You know what? You can stick. You know, you can stick that up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know.
Yep. That's what it's for, right there, baby.
You'll be going back to your ship with 3 holes in your backside.
We may need to stop abducting them humans. They're crazy.
Yeah.
But hey, Michael.
But they won't be coming to your house no more.
No. They're gonna leave this bungalow alone. But Michael, I got to get you back on. This was a treat. This was definitely a treat. I loved the conversation.
It was great.
And I will get you back on, and I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.